So welcome to this first edition of virtual office hours for Samsung Internet Developer Advocacy Group. I'm going to keep admitting people as they come in on the waiting room. We're running this on Zoom. This is a kind of a experiment. The idea is to generate community, to foster community amongst kind of web developers, web technologists, people that are working on the web professionals. The first thing that I ought to do is say that this online event is running under a code of conduct. We're using the Samsung Create Code of Conduct that we created for an event that we ran a couple of years ago. This code of conduct, I dropped a link into the chat about it, although it was written specifically for an event that we ran, a physical face-to-face event, but it's broadly applicable to online events as well. Our plan is to adapt this into a more specific virtual events code of conduct, but this will do for the time being. And if you do have any issues that you want to raise to to escalate something related to the code of conduct, then please feel free to message somebody who is a Samsung person, and we'll work to help fix whatever the issue is. And if including up to and including ejecting people off the Zoom chat if necessary, which I don't think will be necessary, but just to be clear. So who are the Samsung people on the chat? So myself, I'm Dan Appelquist. I'm the director of the Samsung Internet Advocacy Group, and I also play a role in web standards. There's Laura Mornigo, who is kind of going to be more the leader of this call after I hand over to her, and I'm going to be playing kind of a moderation role. We also have Kevin Peachy on the line, who is coming in from Switzerland, and those are the three Samsung people on the call right now. And maybe we can go around and do a little brief introduction of who else is on the call today, and kind of where your mind is at right now. Tell us about your current situation. How much food do you have left, etc. Kenneth, do you want to start off?
Yeah, I can do that. So my name is Kenneth Christiansen. I work for Intel. I am situated out of Copenhagen, Denmark. We still have plenty of food. Everything is on lockdown, but stores are still working. There's plenty of toilet paper. It's all good. I have been a browser engineer since around 2006. Worked on WebKit and then like on Chromia browsers. So that was at Nokia at that point, mostly focusing on mobile web browsers. Then at Intel, I'm currently in a role where I'm looking over strategy for what we're doing on the web, as well as contributing to standards and driving the web forward. So I've also been like involved with the development of progressive web apps and those standards around that. I am also on the technical advisory group. That's what it stands for, I guess, together with Dan. So
Yeah.
architecture group, like, oh yeah, you know.
And Ken, you are a little bit faint. I mean, I could hear you, most of what you said, but you might want to adjust your mic.
It's not adjustable though, but.
Then you need a new mic. Clearly, we need to Amazon something to you.
Yeah, I think maybe it's not using the right one. Is this better?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, so I guess it was using the wrong microphone. Look at the automatic microphone volume. Is this working better?
Yeah, that's good.
This is a Zoom feature. So, okay. So that's me.
Laura, do you want to?
Yeah, well, hi everybody. My name is Laura. I'm based in London. I still have plenty of food. Checking what's going on with Amazon because we have a little bit of delayed deliveries, but like we are covered. I work part of Samsung developer advocacy team with Dan and Kevin that is all around there. I'm based in London. I've been working in tech uh, long ago, but always around web technologies and things like that. So yeah, welcome to the space.
Kevin, do you want to say something? Looks like Kevin.
No, he disappeared. He didn't.
Kevin disappeared.
He's like, no way.
I'm out of here. Dom, are you still there? Do you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Sure, I'm Dominique Hazael-Massieux. I work for WCC. There I'm responsible for developer relation with my colleague Marie. I'm also involved in WebRTC, immersive web, machine learning, web and networks. And I should say WCC is a World Wide Web consortium where we do standards for the web.
I'm Mary.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Marie-Claire Forgue, and Marie for short. I'm based in Cannes, south of France, work for W3C and doing developer relations work with Dominique, who talked earlier. Plenty of food, and day 11.
Yep. And I'm also based in London, by the way, for people who don't know, our developer advocacy group is based in London. Would other people on the call like to, I don't want to kind of like, if other people want to kind of introduce themselves briefly, that would be great. Maybe.
Tony?
Shall I jump in?
Sure.
Awesome. So my name's Tony Moreland. I actually work for Samsung also. I'm with their developer program out in Mountain View. And Daniel, you and I have traded a couple of emails recently where I want to host you on our new podcast that we're doing.
Great.
So my role is to teach designers and developers how to create for Samsung. So go out and speak at conferences, host webinars. Now we'll be doing this new podcast. So I actually wanted to jump in on this call to see how you guys are doing your open office hours. That's something that I want to start doing soon as well.
So we got real company people checking up on us. Okay, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing people's names, but I'm just reading it off the chat queue. Adja or Ajesh? Oh, you're on mute.
We cannot hear you. You're on mute.
I think we have.
Oh, now we can hear you.
There you are.
Hello, am I online? Okay, it's excellent.
Yeah.
Interesting. My son and me were trying Zoom yesterday. Obviously, we tried the free package. But yeah, this is really cool. I would like to use this.
And are you working on what's?
I'm working on my startup. Okay, my birth country is India. Work with Tatas there. Then I was in Silicon Valley for 14 years. So I'm naturalized US. But now I'm based in UK. So I'm a UK resident. And yeah, it's interesting.
Cool. Okay. Kevin, did you want to chat? Intro yourself.
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We're having a lot of internet issues here in Switzerland because everyone is on the line and the country is such a small one. So yeah. I'm Kevin. I joined the Samsung developer advocacy team 6 months ago, and I'm working along Laura, Diego, Dan, Ada, and it's a very good experience for me. And currently love the web and yeah.
Okay.
We hope you stay loving the web. That would be nice.
Okay. Cinthia?
Yes. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
My name is Cinthia. I live in Brasilia now, but I was born in Argentina. I'm Laura's friend.
I see.
Welcome. It's fantastic. We've got such a wide participation here.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Oh, there's Christmas lights still up.
Henri. We're doing intros. Is that Henri Helvetica?
It is.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
This is like formal. Maybe I should get dressed.
No, it's not. Like, look at Kenny with a beer. Like,
Oh my God. Don't call me Dom.
Yeah.
Amazing. He's in his own space. Ha 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 ha.
Welcome, Henri.
Well, don't mind me. I'm eating
Toronto.
oatmeal.
Yeah? How are things in Toronto?
You can leave him out.
Okay.
I get food.
All right, I'm gonna mute you, Henri, and then we'll go on to the next. We're doing intros. We're just doing brief intros. So, Tony.
Yep, I already.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. You
checked.
already did. Sorry. Okay. So, did I get everybody?
I think so. Yeah.
I think I got everybody. Okay, great.
Well, there's more people joining.
Yeah. So the way that this works is when somebody asks to join, they go into a kind of welcome room, and then I see that and I let them in, or not, depending on my whim. But yeah, okay, so great. Well, we've got a really good group here, especially nice to see some W3C colleagues joining. Maybe I should hand it over to Laura and for kind of more intro of the topic that we want to cover.
yeah, so welcome everybody. First of all, the idea of this is to have a space where we can still connect and chat around technologies, especially web and everything. There's a bunch of things going on online, a lot of talks online, e-learning, but sometimes we're still missing this space, especially in these times, to talk and other people. So the idea is, in this case, bring your favorite drink. It can be coffee, tea, or a beer, and connect, and let's talk about what's going on in the web. What are you working on, and things like that, right? So today we have Kenny. How are you, Kenny?
Well, I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have Kenny here. Kenny has been working on the web a long time ago. So first of all, what are you currently doing during these times, Kenny?
Well, what I'm currently working on, well, we're looking a lot at, basically, if you look at I work for Intel, so we're really looking at like what we can do on the web to make sure that's aligned with what we're doing elsewhere. So making sure that we're looking at all our like hardware roadmaps, see if everything is exposed on the web. So for instance, today they're announcing that they're going to ship like SIMD for WebAssembly inside of Chrome. And that's something that we've been working on because we have like SIMD instructions on our CPUs. It stands for single instruction, multiple data. It allows you to like iterate over data, do multiplications and the like much faster. Sometimes you can do like 4 or 8 or 16, even more operations in just one operation. So that's it's a big speed up for things like codecs and games and physics in relation. And that's really what we want. We want to like improve games on the web. We want to improve like physics and all the like. So this is really cool. Personally, I'm looking more at like standards around like application development. We had telemetry at Intel that showed that more than 50% of the time spent on Intel processes was spent on the web, basically mostly in Chrome, then I think in Firefox, then it was Outlook, and then I think it was like Internet Explorer. So like of the top 4 apps, it was all like 3 of them was like web browsers, and even like Office, like Outlook is becoming a progressive web app. So Microsoft came out with they have better telemetry as we have, as most people opt into sharing the telemetry with Microsoft, and they said it's actually 60% for them. And that doesn't count applications that are also web-based, such as Slack, Visual Studio Code, and many more like Spotify and whatnot. So we really want to help the web, but we also really want people, there's this platform called desktop computers. I understand a lot of people move to phones, a lot of people kind of like tablets, but there's still a big demand for actually having these like more powerful developer tools for creating applications, for doing video editing, gaming, and the like. So we really want to keep this platform very alive and kicking. So we need to improve what you can do on the web, so that you develop this one application that runs on desktop computers, can run on mobile phones as well, and not just across like Windows, but also across Chrome OS and Mac and all of them, so that it's worth the investment that people are doing. So for this reason, now we've been collaborating also with Google and Microsoft. So I've been working on looking at dual screens, because as you have heard, they're becoming quite popular. I know even Samsung, they really like dual screens, like either dual screen or like foldable screens. So it's all considered like one screen, but whether it's like one flippable or foldable screen, or whether it's like 2 together with a hinge in between. You need to be able to adopt
you
all your content.
Spoke, or you recently been working with Diego from our team on something related to foldables. Let me dig up that URL while you're speaking.
Yeah, and besides that, just a parenthesis, if somebody have a question or something like that, you probably can raise your hand, and then we'll take a look, and then you can start being part of the conversation. Again, this is to meet each other. This is like to have a discussion. So yeah, feel free to bring your opinions and talk about that. So I think that we have a bunch of people from W3C, and that's amazing. But probably there's a lot of people that will watch this later, or that is pretty curious about what is W3C doing, like, and what are you currently doing with Kenny, and maybe you, Dan, what you can say about what is W3C and actually the work that you're currently doing.
Dan.
Just trying to find that explainer link, but I mean I think some of the work that Ken and I, for instance, work on together is to do with our work in the W3C tag. So that is at that URL, and the work that we've been doing recently has been around reviewing new specifications that are being brought to the web, right? And I think it's a really exciting place to be, because we are reviewing all kinds of things, all kinds of new proposals for new APIs and new technologies that are on their way into the web platform from various directions. And so from where we sit, because we're looking at all these new technologies as they're being proposed and reviewing these proposals and reviewing these designs, it feels to me like we're in this very exciting time when it comes to new technologies coming to the web. I don't think there's ever been a kind of more. I don't think there's ever been more new stuff coming to the web than there is now, right? And some of that is on the, some of it's in different layers of the web platform or different applications of the web platform. But there are so many people working on this stuff. And by the way, we've had an enormously good, I would say, positive reaction from most of that community who are used to doing a lot of their work in remotely to in calls like this. there's a lot of, everybody who we're working with is in quite good spirits about the whole thing. I mean, and is able to kind of like, we're in the middle of a crisis, but we're continuing the work of reviewing these APIs and reviewing new technologies as we go, which has been very very positive. Very, it fills me with good. I don't know how to say it exactly. Good energy about the web community and the web developer community. Dom, do you want to say a little bit about where your experiences about kind of W3C is showing you right now?
Yeah, I can summarize 20 years of my life in 5 minutes.
4 minutes, please.
So yeah, I've been working in WCC for a while, and I mentioned earlier some of the technologies I've been involved in designing. In particular, I guess WebRTC has taken a lot of my time and energy, but I guess we are benefiting from it, in particular these days where we're looking for remote socializing. I guess in general, I mean, I mentioned part of what Marie-Claire and I work on is our small developer relation effort in WCC, but one thing we really strongly believe in is that to make good web standards, good web technologies, we really need to hear from developers, both in terms of their use cases, but also how the technology gets incorporated into the day-to-day workflows. It's really nice to design APIs in theory, but if you can't actually use it in practice because there are too many obstacles or too many business-specific issues that makes it impossible to adapt, then really we failed our mission. So what we are trying to do in general is understand what we can do to make it easier for WCC, for developers to know what's happening in WCC, why it matters to them, and how to give input and feedback in the overall standardization process. Standards are hard and expensive to build, but that only means it's even more important to get them done right rather than just getting them done. So that's part of what Marie-Claire and I are trying to do, and hopefully this kind of event can help bring attention to the need.
Yeah, so basically, as a W3C, if you're a developer, they're trying to build better standards for the web. It doesn't matter which vendor or browser you're working in. The idea is to have best practices. So yeah, I really suggest to take a look at W3C.org if you want to take a look about the different groups and what's happening now. So let's go back to Kenneth. Right. Yeah. So we've been talking that you've been working with specifications and especially around this new technology that is about foldables and dual screen, right? You've been talking that also Diego is part of our team. He's not here today, but you've both been working around some specifications around foldables and dual screen. First of all, what's the difference between dual screen and foldables? And then what are you working on right now about that? You're mute. Kenneth, you're mute.
Kenneth, you're muted.
I was muted, sorry. Okay, I'm unmuted now. So let's start over. If you have like a big screen or like a small screen, like a phone, and you can actually fold it, so it's one screen that's in kind of two parts, but folded in one place, it's called a foldable. Sometimes like these foldables, they do have a few issues. like it's new technology. They break more easily. You cannot put glass on top of them and all of that. So sometimes you can do something similar by using two different screens. So two physical screens that have a hinge in between, and you fold them as well. So it's kind of the same experience, but you have this hinge in between, which can be annoying. So for these like dual screen devices, it's much more important that you can adopt your web content to not flow over the middle, because it kind of looks silly. So that's what we have been working on, actually enabling people to do these experiences. So for instance, if you have an image viewer, you click on the image on one side, you see the image on the other side. Same thing with email. You might have your email list on one side of the screen, but when you click on email, you see it on the other side, not half across the hinge. So making sure that you can do all these examples. And I think like Laura wants to show us something cool. Yes, he has one of those
well, so
devices.
this is one of the foldables that actually we're working on. So basically, there's a chance to divide the screen also and have multiple browsers open and untapped. But what does it mean for developers? It means that we have new types of design that we have to take care about. Especially responsive. I don't know what do you think about the front screen in this case, Kenneth, or other people. I found it that also it's a different size that probably we should work on and in other old device. So besides design and patterns, I really like to mention that actually, Kenny, you're working with PWAs also, right? So so if you're not familiar about PWAs are web apps that use browser's feature to have a native experience, kind of in the browser. So also we've been working with Samsung Internet team to actually test PWAs in these kind of devices, right? So what do you think about the current status of PWAs now? And if you can tell us why you've been working with PWAs before.
Okay, let me see if I remember all of those questions. So
yeah,
I believe that if we don't expand what you can do on the web, like the web is always under like competition from other platforms. So it used to be just for documents, and that was fine. But then it turned out to become like the application development platform for like desktop computers. And things was great. We got like Gmail, we got Google Maps, we got other experiences, and it was a great time for the web. But then we got to mobile. And people working on the web was working on desktop browsers, and they didn't know how mobile worked. So the web was really slow at becoming an application development platform for mobile as well. So we kind of lost that battle at that point, and we're trying to regain that lost ground. So I think the world would be a bad place without the web, because you're not gated by any store, any policies made by any company. You can create any app out there. There's no one charging you like 1/3 of the price of whatever you're selling that you need to pay to this special company. So like the web is this like really open democratic platform that I really care about. So like in order for the web to stay relevant in this new world, we need to meet developers and users where they are. And that currently means that we need to expand what you can do with the web. So one of the things that people really care about is that on a mobile phone, it's really, you don't want to stay inside the browser. There's all this, your screen is already pretty small, and now you're taking up some real estate by doing some search bar and like some address bar and other icons and whatnot. So people that want to use the whole experience for the apps, what is like very app-like experience. But this is kind of like how everything started out with progressive web apps. Like, how can we allow developers to create apps that work like native apps? Like they can be installed, they can take over the full screen, they can work offline, they can basically be the best of both worlds. So that's why we started progressive web apps. And then like the next step was like, okay, it works pretty well on mobile, but on desktop, this is where people really use web. Like everyone is wrapping the application into Electron with all kinds of issues just to get the like to write the application, use web technology, but do extra things you cannot do on the web. So we want to meet people there as well. So we want to work on expanding what you can do with progressive web apps, how these apps can look and integrate with the system, but also look at like what are those APIs that people really need to, what that are core to their business. So if your business is connecting to medical devices and that requires a USB or Bluetooth connection, well, you cannot do a web app if you don't have any API on the web to do that. So that's why we're working on those and enabling it. But the web is a special place because it's kind of like you don't install every website you want to visit. It's kind of the drive-by web. Like you just type in the URL and there you are, it loads instantly. But it also means that you visit all kinds of sites that you might not really trust enough to install as an app. If you don't like it, you just move along. So like security and privacy is very key to the web, like the core tenets. So we really need to make sure that all these new APIs we're exposing, like they keep people safe, and they're not like sharing their data around with everyone else. So if we can do this, like we will succeed, but it's really difficult. But if we don't, the web will become irrelevant, or there's a large chance that it will, and that will just like be against everything that I've worked for. And so that's why I really care about this and why I'm really working on this.
Yeah, I agree. Even like in situations that we are taking right now, I can see on Twitter or in other social media that there are new apps related with COVID every day, right? And sometimes developers wants to reach out people, but then they realize that first of all they have several steps to go into the store, get the approval, and then actually they have to reach out other people. So what my thoughts around that is, okay, but the web is open to everybody and people can still access from everywhere. So my opinion is to encourage you keep using the web as it is, right? Before actually think, okay, let's do an app or something like that. There's, of course, there are different things that we have to keep in mind, but that's the current situation that I actually see, right? And then finally you realize that, okay, I have 10 apps related with the same thing. Then you uninstall your apps, right? So not only in terms of developers, also in the users side, right? So yeah, check what's happening with progressive web apps right now.
Can I, just to underscore that, I mean, I think one of the reasons that I've been working on the web and why I put so much of my energy into the web over a long time, longer than I'm going to admit, is that I think there is an inherent social benefit to the web. You know, the web was built, was first started by Tim Berners-Lee as a kind of information sharing platform with a very kind of pro-social approach. And, you know, at first really aimed at the scientific community for sharing information, or the educational community, but very quickly that broke out of that community into the larger community, the larger internet community. And the web and the internet have kind of grown side by side in that time. But there isn't the web. One of the benefits of the web is that it has some inherent ethics that are kind of built into it. One of the documents that I worked on last year, and I'm going to drop another link in here, is something called the Ethical Web Principles. And this is actually something that I worked on with another member of the TAG technical architecture group that Ken and I are in. I worked on this with Hadley Beeman. Hadley Beeman is, I really want to spend a second asking you all to think you know, send positive thoughts to Hadley Beeman right now, because she is working in NHSX in the health service in the UK. And she's been doing a lot with regard to data and data, you know, health data. She's been basically working tirelessly as part of the NHS. I mean, she's not a clinician; she's working on the more on the IT side of things, but still, is a lot of work that she's been doing to help NHS. But anyway, Hadley is also a member of the technical architecture group, and we work together on this set of ethical principles. And Kenneth mentioned privacy. Privacy is an important part of the web. It's not just about the services that you build on top of the web. It's also about the underlying fundamental technology of the web itself, the architecture of the web being more oriented towards privacy, being naturally resistant to services or ways in which private data can be abused or misused, and that's tricky. One thing that we worked on, and we were happy to be part of in the tag, that is an example of that, is the move to HTTPS. So, you know, if you've been paying attention to the web for the past few years, you will note that the percentage of HTTPS websites has gone up and up and up and up, and that's partially as a social response to the fact that unencrypted HTTP traffic was being abused by various parties. So, you know, moving to HTTPS can be one way to help protect users' privacy. It's just one example, and it's something the tag had a role in, although we are only one voice in a number of voices across the industry that have been calling for the movement to HTTPS. And HTTPS is, of course, vital for progressive web apps, actually. So as Laura pointed out in one of the blog posts that I linked to above on Service Worker, because Service Worker API is such a key API for progressive web apps, because it is a very powerful API, it's something that we when we, that is web technology, web standards people, designated that it should only work under secure context, only under HTTPS. And that's to help mitigate against abuse, mitigate against like script injection, for instance, that could make for bad use of Service Worker, which is such a powerful API. Anyway, I just want to kind of mention, you know, we're working in the web standards world to try and make the web platform itself more inherently ethical, more inherently private, more inherently accessible, all of those kinds of features. And that's something I urge you to take a look at.
Yeah, so something that I usually say about PWAs and what we're working on is that besides trying to compare with native apps and what's the difference at the end, we are building best practices for the web. Like, I think the users deserve safe environment to actually using web apps, and also rely on a good performance, right? I don't know, what do you think, Kenneth?
Sorry, like, I didn't understand the question.
I was saying that we've been talking about PWAs, and usually there's a trend that people trying to discuss, okay, PWAs, what is it? Or PWAs versus native apps, which one should I choose? I usually suggest that when we talk about PWAs, it means also best practices for the web at the end, because I think users deserve have a trusted website to work on, also rely on a good performance, right? Using offline experiences. So I usually suggest to go around the PWA world as a way to check, okay, how can I improve my web app, right? So I was asking you, what do you think about this? Is actually something that we have to follow, or is something that I don't know, a different way to do native versus PWA, or what do you think?
It's a pretty open question, so I'll just try to answer some, and you'll see where it fits. So I think like every website doesn't have to be a progressive web app. There's definitely a website. It's just about like showing data. If you create something that's kind of like an re-engaging app-like experience, where it's not just like a link of documents where you don't want to like link to every document. It's kind of like engagement. So like I could search for like recipes and it's fine. I find one recipe on one side and one on another side. But if someone created this like app-like experience around it with like good videos, or like click here and you'll see the next screen so I can use it in my kitchen, maybe that's something that should be a like progressive web app. But every website, of course, like there, as you said, like there are like, you can make every website better by following the same guidelines. Try to make sure that the website is responsive, so it works in different screen resolutions. Make sure that it works with dual screen. Now these devices might become popular. But just by looking, making sure that it works offline, you might be thinking, well, it's Twitter. Why would I use it offline? It's all about getting the news. But sometimes maybe you are in like underground tunnel or something, and then it would be nicer with like older news, or like you just want at least the shell of the application, at least that to be cached. So all of that already is responsive. So when you click on things, it's just gonna tell you like, oh, sorry, I'm having issues connecting right now, but let me fetch that when we get better connection, and I'll give you the latest news. But by the way, here are the news that I just fetched a moment ago. Instead of saying like, white screen, you're offline, sorry. So
yeah,
I do think that like every application can become better by applying some of these technologies and ideas behind progressive web apps, but they don't necessarily need to become these installable apps that you install on your system. That really depends whether you're providing some kind of like better, more engaging app-like experience. So I don't know if that answered this.
Yeah, exactly.
The other question
it's also to open a discussion around, okay, what is it? It's like, should I go for it or not? Because one of the things that I really like that you mentioned is that when it's about offline experience, not every website should be 100% offline. At least the core of the app, or when the user tries to interact with the website, if you're able to provide an information, okay, hey, you're offline, it's something that you're already improving, right? So
I think like the best way to answer that is that it's not always about offline online. It's not black and white. It's often about intermittent network, like when you kind of have some connection, but it's really slow. So you might be able to have like a timeout saying, well, if this is not responding to the server in half a second, well, then I'm just gonna use the old version. It's probably fine. So you can like deal with this like kind of like intermittent network, which is like very common. Like just walking out in the field, walking in the forest, going on the tube, like you run into these issues. And people have this idea that you don't, that you're always online, always offline. But it's not that black and white.
Yeah, and also to rely in sometimes network or things like that. I think there are different strategies around how to use a better offline experience. As you said, not only like a wide offline or online. Also, as developers, we have to be really responsible about which kind of strategies we use to put something offline. As an example, usually when we build our apps, we think, okay, these images and things like that should be ready for the user. But at the end, if a user is going through your website for the first time and that's it, and you are using all the resources to download everything at once, are you sure that you want to provide that using all the resources for the users to really for the first time? So I really like to think about offline in terms of think about what is the strategy around your website, how actually the user can improve that.
Actually, I want to like say some additional to that. Like, don't think it's per website. I think a website might have many different strategies depending on what kind of resources you're dealing with. So like you might have like some, like I said, like some shell around your application, which is like just core of your, like all your web pages is using it. So like maybe that's something you want to cache. Maybe there's something that people are very likely to use. So maybe you want to cache like a low resolution of some of these images. So it will work, it won't be perfect. It could be for like, just like show an outline of an image, just like the colors. There are like many different ways. Like if it's an article, maybe like, yeah, people probably won't read that, or like you can see there's a lot of engagement. I'm on Twitter, I'm checking, like refreshing every second. Well, maybe then I want to like recast some other things. Like there are many different areas of the website that might have different caching strategies, and I think that's something that you should keep in mind.
Yeah, great. And which kind of web developer tools do you use to improve your website?
Well, I think like the dev tools in most of browsers is really great. When I'm dealing with layout, like Flexbox or things like that, or like CSS Grid, I kind of like to use Firefox. They have better tools. Like it really shows actually like what you're doing, the sizes and whatnot. For things like I really like, generally like I use Chrome, so I really like the tools in Chrome. I think it's so many features that are awesome, and they're hard to find. And like, how many people know you can do like Control P or whatever to search in DevTools? And like, I didn't know that you can do that in Visual Studio Code, but you can do that in DevTools too. And then like something like Lighthouse, which is like a simple test. It just runs through your website, give you a lot of feedback on what is not good. Some hints like, hey, maybe your images are pretty big, but you're resizing them to like 100 by 100. Why don't you resize your images? And so like easy wins, and it kind of gives you a score. So you kind of like, it's in gaming mode, like, yes, I need to go to 100. And your website will probably become a better website by trying to do that. You don't necessarily need to get to 100, but just like trying and trying to figure out what you can do to improve your experience is great.
Alrighty, thanks. And I think we are almost over for this very first part. So as we all know, we are living in a special times. So I would ask you, Kenneth, what does it mean, the web, for you right now, right? Because we are just at our houses, working from home, and we have access to plenty of content that otherwise without the web it would be hard to access. So what's the final message about the web?
Well, I love the web. Like I love links. I love that I can go on Twitter and people will share a link to me to something that if it was an app, I was in, nah, I don't know if I want that installed. I don't know what's doing to my thing. And then I have to remember to uninstall it as well. Maybe it's going to take up all my storage. Maybe it's, yeah, nah, let's not do it. On the web, you just click on a link, like, oh, this is awesome. Like, let me bookmark this. Let me share this with my friends. Oh, like, look at this, like, this corona problem in Denmark. Like, I can copy the exact deep link and send it to my friends. I think like this sharing thing and the linkability is awesome. And I love it. And something else that really made me happy, like this week, was that I was playing around with, I just have the Twitter Progressive Web app on my phone. It works great. Of course, there's things that could be improved, but I noticed that they actually implemented like haptic feedback. So every time you do like a pull to refresh, it goes like, just like you have in the Android UI already, but now you had it inside the app. When I scroll really fast and by mistake I clicked on like for a tweet that I probably shouldn't like, people might like unfollow me because of that. I just felt it like, oh, I clicked on like, oh yeah, let me unfollow, unlike that, because like, that was just like a random tweet in my feed. And like wow, it just felt so native, like you can do this on the web today. And just like for like, why haven't people used this vibration API just for like this little haptic feedback before? It was really cool.
Great. And okay, so we're gonna open the discussion around whatever you want to ask to Kenneth, and see if there are other topics. I think there is other topic appearing here. We can open discussions around that, right? But before going through that topic, if you have any other questions to Kenneth, raise your hand.
Well, I see that we already got a question on the chat from Maxim. So it's about like the recent update from Apple. So if people don't know, Apple cares a lot about privacy, at least. So they've been trying to look at like what do you do with cookies, third-party cookies, and they've been trying to block a lot of these. Some people from Google say like, yeah, I don't think that's the right solution, because if you do that, people just gonna find like other ways, and we really don't want to just like block things. We want to find better solutions. So there's been like some controversy around that, like what was the right solution. But it seems now that at this point, like Google was actually correct. People found other ways of like avoiding these cookies being blocked by using other kinds of storage, so like local storage and the like. So what is happening now is that I would say, well, okay, if they're doing that, we're just gonna like evict all caches and storage every 7 day of interactivity. So this might mean that your progressive web app basically kind of gets uninstalled, all the caches gets cleared. So when you're offline and you open this app, suddenly it won't work. So what is not clear right now is exactly how it works. There seems to be some differences when the app is installed to the home screen, which is very rare on iOS because you're not allowed to prompt for it. So most of these apps are not installed to the home screen. But apparently they have some different kind of counter, and people are still trying to digest and figure out exactly how all of this works and how it might affect progressive web apps. I'm kind of sad because it means that they're trying to block third-party cookies because of tracking, but they end up actually blocking first-party storage as part of this, which can be pretty bad for progressive web apps. So we're trying to figure out like what exactly is happening, what this means, and what we can do, and what it might mean for progressive web apps. So yeah, I don't know if you have any comments, Maxim.
Yeah, feel free to share your opinions, Maxim.
Hello. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey there.
Okay.
I see you here twice.
Yes, for technical reasons, I use both mobile and laptop. Yeah, so lots of unclarities in this statement. For example, some folks mentioned that they listed pretty much everything, but not, for example, cache API in this list of what they explicitly in after 1 week of non-usage. So yeah, let's stay updated. I'd not make any like strong statements on this. Let's test what they roll out, and I don't know. Of course, yeah, that's quite sad if this will work exactly like they told. Like if you didn't install your PWA, and installation flow is quite well hidden on iOS devices. So if you didn't do it and you didn't use your PWA for 7 days, like then everything will be cleaned. Well, that's not very friendly step towards PWA. But on the other hand, if we think about PWA like about progressive enhancement, and we have to think about this like this, right? Then maybe it all follows the guidelines. Of course, like developer experience and user experience will not be perfect, but still it's, let's say, it's something acceptable. So that means don't rely on your service worker, don't rely on what you put into cache API, and then everything will be fine. But we'll see.
I think kind of like I saw a lot of like actually privacy people were kind of scared about this because like I create like a grocery list, so I don't think that should be shared. So I just have it in my local like storage, but I might not use it every week because maybe on vacation. So like after a week, suddenly all my grocery items are bad. They're like gone. So what might happen, or what people are fearing will happen, is that everyone is gotta like make sure that everything is tied up to cloud service. Like that's the only way. Like you might get like evicted, but you can get all the data back, and that might actually be a privacy issue for a lot of people. At least that's what people are arguing on Twitter. So I can kind of follow that. That can.
There's a lot of sniping on Twitter that happens about everything, every single topic in the world. So I would say, I mean, obviously this is a Samsung Internet office hours talk, so we're not gonna, I don't think we can have an official opinion on what Apple does. I will say that I think Apple, you know, I work with people in, and Kenneth does as well. We work with people in Apple in standards, and there's a back and forth, you know, between different kind of like visions of what the web is and how the web should work, and you know what the priorities of different features, and the priority of privacy and, you know, versus functionality, and you know, and I think this is an ongoing discussion. I think any organization that's working on the web today is responsive to user feedback and developer feedback. I will say that, yeah, and I haven't actually read Jeremy Keith's post yet. I'll have a read of it. I think whenever I see people having a knee-jerk reaction about and assuming other people's motives, which seems to be happening a lot when it comes to the topic of progressive web apps, I get a little worried. So my approach is generally to try to listen and try and figure out what's really going on. So I'll try and do that. I will say, so speaking as Samsung, one of the things that we have been doing, and which we've been doing for a while, is putting stuff into the browser which are explicitly trying to support progressive web apps, right? Like the fact that we have the save to home screen button in the URL bar, which is still something that we haven't seen in Chrome. The fact that we support progressive web apps in the Galaxy Store, which need to be done indirectly through trusted web activities if you're on Chrome. So, you know, I think everybody's got some different ideas. We're pretty keen on our approach to progressive web apps, and thinking about how developers should be taking a look at this technology and using it, and how it should be evidenced to end users. But everybody's got different ideas right now, and I think that's good. That's natural, and it's going to lead to a better kind of web ecosystem. And it also means that users can choose which browser they want to use based on some of those features and based on the different priorities that those companies have. You know, so I think that's important. Sorry, bit of philosophical there.
But that's fine. Also, I think this is something that we have to create spaces to check what's going on around. For people that is watching this and not aware about which, because here we have Samsung Internet, we have also Microsoft, and we usually work together to check what's going on with different technologies, including PWAs. And lately, one of the reasons that we care about what's going on with Apple or not is because usually we don't have explicit information about which are the trends or how we can do a better web environment, right? So I think that's why we bring these conversations to the table, and that's what is currently happening. For people that are watching them, probably they're like, why they're talking about this or something like that. So.
Henri, any comments from Canada?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I mean, it's not as cold as you think. And I don't know, the PWA thing, I've been, you know, trying to make out some of it. I read half of Jeremy's blog post, like barely half actually, but I mean, I've been just basically silently paying attention to everyone's conversation, and well, wanted to get a feel for it and to see what kind of content was going to be discussed, and to you know, sort of formulate ideas and whatnot. And I mean, I don't want to sit here and sort of backtrack, you know, because I don't want to slow anything down. But I mean, I've had this conversation online with I think Diego a few times. I'm not a big believer of this dual screen, long screen phone. I just feel that, you know, okay, so part of my skepticism is because I also came from retail to an extent, you know, so I've always had this sort of B2B idea in my head, and I just don't see it sort of taking off, you know. I mean, in a bit of useless information, next week will be the 10-year anniversary of the iPad, and the iPad launch anyways. And, you know, we are barely scratching 3% on you know, use along the web. And, you know, are we going to wait another 10 years for it to hit 5%? I don't think so. You know, I think the people have spoken, and I think it's a very just simplistic mobile world and desktop, and I'd even say just mobile in the first place. So I was still kind of stuck on the dual screen thing going on.
I don't know. Have you taken a look though? I mean, I really do urge you to take a look at some of the foldables, though. You know, it's like when I was skeptical as well, and then I used one of those foldable devices. I'm a lot more partial to the Z Flip, or the Z Flip, because it's more like it's like, take this phone. I'm so sorry I don't have one here, but
you wish.
yeah, I really wanted one. I mean, we were able to do at the physical office hours that we ran a few weeks ago. Yeah, when we could still all go out of our houses. We ran that at the Samsung KX space, which is a kind of a store-like space near King's Cross in central London. And they actually had some of these, and we were able to like take advantage of some of these and show people what their website looks like on a foldable phone. So it's like this, but imagine this, but then you fold it in half and it turns into a clamshell type phone. Very compelling, actually. And has been really popular. So I think that's going to have some legs, personally speaking. I mean, people are tired of this kind of form factor that, you know, is the only form factor available for all mobile phones, right? Where it's a single monolithic gray rectangle or black rectangle. You know, they want some people are kind of itching for like a change or a choice in industrial design, and something like that really helps you, like, because it's a lot smaller for carrying around. You know, I think that kind of thing is going to make a difference. And then the question then becomes, you know, how do you help developers take advantage of that when they're building a web page, when they're building a progressive web app? How do you help them like build UI that makes sense for that form factor? Like, so in the case of the Z Flip, for instance, if you're in the camera app and you start to close the device, so you start to fold it like that, then the top part of the device turns into the camera preview image, and the bottom part of the screen turns into the camera controls, right? So and there's an animated transition there, and that's in the camera app itself. So I think part of the thinking behind the explainer that Ken and Diego were working on is how do you surface those? How do you surface that information to the developers, so the developers can build on the web those kinds of experiences, which I think is.
I mean, I'm not downplaying the interesting sort of innovation that it's become. I mean, a foldable phone. It's like, you know, we went from Motorola flips to candy bars now to back to foldable screens, etc. And again, I think it's interesting. Do I see it taking, you know, much of our time for accommodation. Again, I'm just sort of wondering what's going to happen there, because for all the bashing we sort of give Apple for its expensive devices, I don't gather these foldable phones are coming in at any kind of moderate pricing. And that being said, I just think they're in this space that people might be like, yeah, it's kind of cool, it's kind of interesting, but I already have my George Costanza wallet. You know what I mean? It's not going to fit in my pocket like that. So that being said, again, I just went back at that. I was like, whatever. I'm a bigger believer of the DeX idea. I mean, I've defended that online a bunch of times. Hoping that Samsung would actually create something that would be in a more sort of moderate device accepting situation. Just because I actually believe that has tremendous legs, and we will see even more adoption take place at that point, in which case then you could start to have like these bigger conversations, X, Y, and Z. But yeah, I don't want to beat that foldable phone dual screen thing too much, just because it's just more like a personal opinion of mine.
I agree with you on the desktop, on the DeX type thing, where you plug your phone into a desktop monitor and you kind of have this desktop experience. I mean, one of the things that we've been looking at is, because Microsoft have been doing a lot with progressive web apps on the desktop, right? And we've been supporting progressive web apps on the desktop in DeX for a few years now. So it's very cool, the idea that you take like Twitter, for instance, and you save it to home screen, and then, or you install it, and then when you're using a phone, regularly, you're just using the Twitter PWA, but when you plug it into your DeX station, it comes up as a whole separate full window application, and it's, both of them are the same progressive web app. It's just another PWA that's running in a kind of browser tab type experience.
Yeah, I believe that has like tremendous legs, and I would quicker put some of that investment, or I don't say take it away from foldable phones, but I would see greater returns in my head with that kind of situation happening, just because, again, you would have this sort of new audience of people who would, hopefully make that adoption, and I just don't see that same sort of scenario happening with the foldable phone. And again, not bashing anyone, this is just all personal, and trying to expand the sort of, reach of the web, not by having these sort of high-priced devices that have like this foldable experience that's just so delightful. No,
Yeah, and also I think that it's a process where actually users are testing, and even companies are testing how it can work for users, and even if they like it. For example, I'm not sure about this one, right? But as Dan said, the other flip one is like something that I will try. But also we were just thinking and kind of having some more imagination around that. Why not doing the kind of tablet also that we can actually draw or something, or read or whatever. But I think this is a stage where actually they're checking if users are gonna like it or not, or it's more like back to 2000 where we have a Motorola or something like that, or actually it's something really new or that people is gonna like it. So
what happened to the phablets? They came and they went. Phone tablets. It's like no one wants to have a skateboard in their back pocket. So I just think the people have spoken to an extent.
We have to do our best.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that phablets actually turned every phone bigger. And I remember when I worked at Nokia, I got the N9. I thought that was like a huge device.
Yeah.
And if I compare it to my phone today, I notice my new phone is bigger. But I just got so used to it, and people got so used to it. Because initially when we saw these a Samsung Note, people were like, what is this? And now it's like, yeah, okay, Note was maybe a bit too big for most people. If you have big hands, okay, it's fine. But for regular people, it's a bit smaller, but it's still a lot bigger than they used to be.
Yeah. No, I totally hear you. I mean, I don't think I could ever. I have a iPhone. What do they call Plus? The big ones, the Plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have one of those, and
Big
I can't go back to the smaller ones. You know, I held one recently. I was like, "What's this?" You know, this feels like a playing card. You know,
And it used to feel huge.
I know exactly, right? So, but again, you know,
I like
are we?
I like a smaller phone. I have to say, I'm you know, so.
No, I hear you. I hear you. I was a big Nokia fan at one point. I had a 3310, and if I showed you how small that was, you'd be like, I have clickers that are bigger, you know. But yeah, I mean, you know, when I think of the is it the Surface Duo, you know, and I'm looking at that, I'm like, okay, you know, again, the tablet took 10 years to reach. It peaked around like 7%. You know, it's at 2.5 now. Took 10 years to get there. Like, is a Surface Duo going to make that huge of a difference? You know, it may become like a specialty device for X, Y, and Z reasons, you know, but I just don't see it cracking at retail and then becoming any kind of real priority on a sort of like developer level. It'll be there, the information will be there, you know, all the CSS will be implemented. You'll be like, oh, I could do that easy, bang, bang, boom. But on a consumer device level, it's not where I think it needs to be. But shout outs Nokia, I was a big fan. I had a bunch of those, Kenneth, man. We could talk offline about that.
So I just wanted to give my opinion because like I really currently I feel like it's too, like the technology with foldable phones is just not there. So like I wouldn't want one myself. I would be scared that it will be breaking and whatnot. But I also think that for phones, like yes, they're foldables, but they're so fat. So fat doesn't fit in my pocket. I rather want a bigger phone that's thin. But I do think that for like this kind of like the Surface Neo or like tablets and laptops, it makes a lot more sense because they're very different use cases. Like you're running around in a hospital, you want to clamp it together and run around with it, and you still want to be able to use it, just fold it up, and there are all kinds of different use cases where it really makes sense and makes a lot more sense. But of course, that doesn't mean that you want like a 17-inch dual screen, so it's actually 2 times 17-inch. Like that for me doesn't make any sense. But I guess we just gotta see this. But I think like the Microsoft like 9-inch Surface Neo, they have shown a lot of like nice use cases. How you can put like a physical keyboard on top of it. You still get like a big bar where you can like choose emojis or like even show a video feed. I think there are like really use cases where this makes a lot of sense. But it's like kind of for like smaller laptops and tablets, not as much for phones. That's kind of my own interest in making this work.
I don't know for sure, you know, and again, use cases. I think they're going to be more enterprise than anything like that. You know, you mentioned the medical industry. I think it'd be great for a physician to be looking over you, and yes, he has 2 screens or she has 2 screens, and you know, they'll fiddle around with the data that they need to. That's totally fine. But again, I just look at it on a sort of like a real sort of consumer basis, and I just think it's like, okay, cool, great idea, great technology, amazing that we can accommodate this as developers. But I just don't think it's like a massive. You know,
I think there's another aspect, which is that it's fun. I mean, I do think it's important and fun to think about how to accommodate dual screen devices for and build web standards that accommodate dual screen devices. But I think the other thing that is worth thinking about as web developers is that these are high-end devices that we're talking about, right? You know, and we need to also, you know, the whole thing about progressive enhancement is about supporting the lower-end devices as well, and that came to the fore for me recently. I posted a link earlier in the chat about a link to a blog post from Government Digital Service about their COVID-19 info site that was aimed specifically at vulnerable people. So, you know, the elderly, I mean, not to typecast the elderly, but, you know, people, it needed to work for everybody, right? and GDS, which is an organization that I actually did some work for a while, before I came to Samsung, they have a whole ethos around the design has to work for everybody, because this is public information, and you need to be able, if you are trying to apply for benefits or register your car or something like that, you can't have it that you're oh, I don't have a powerful enough phone to access this service, right? Which leads them towards one direction, which is which has been really great to see, which is a web first direction, basically. Like, so build something for the web first, because we know that's going to work. We know it works for everybody. It's a great common platform that everybody shares, and only build a native app if you need to take advantage of some capability that is not offered by the web. And that's specific that's specific guidance that that GDS came out with a number of years ago, and it still holds true. And then also they have a whole ethos around building things that are very performant for smaller spec devices, for smaller footprint devices, for smaller CPU devices, which is extremely important for anybody, really. I mean, it's, you know, we talk about a lot of the time when people talk about low-end devices, they talk about web and building websites for people in the developing world, that kind of thing. You know, it applies to anybody, anywhere, and that goes for the devices themselves, and it also goes for the networks. There are plenty of places in the UK where you can go, and in the US and anywhere, where you can go and you're not going to get a good network signal. And that's just true anywhere. So like those building web applications that take into account those problems, I think that's a hard problem. And so yeah, there's a lot that we can do, I think, as in the industry, to help support people who are trying to take those factors into account.
There's a suggestion for you, Daniel.
Yeah.
It's an iPhone.
Have you seen that phone?
Yeah, it's like a kind of minimalist phone.
Yeah.
Actually, and actually, one of the feedback that we have from the Flip, right, is that people is feeling better in the ones that want to use less their phone, because they have a one extra step opening the foldable to actually check what's going on inside, right? So I'm not sure. I mean, you can also turn off your phone or do something else. But actually, that's one of the things that we received, that as you have to do an extra step to check your social media or things like that, people use their phone less.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, both a small and big phones should exist. I will own both as each year.
My connection is...
Yeah, Henry, you're alrighty. So I don't know if we have any other comments or discussions or questions to Kenneth, that he's just back. You can see Amanda is there also. Welcome. Alrighty, so I think again, yeah, there's somebody there. No, I think we're fine. Okay, so I think if we don't have any more questions or any other topics that you would like to mention, again, this is a space to meet everybody and try to see some faces around the web, have open discussions around Thanks, Kenneth, for coming here. It's good to see you at least online. I know that we are in a really special day, so at least to stay connected around the web, keep having a conversation, keep learning. So yeah, if you have any feedback around what we did today, please let us know. Again, we are doing this for the very first time, doing open conversations online. The idea is to continue this. So if you have any suggestions or something like that, let us know. Also, if you want to suggest somebody, or if you have any other topic, we are more than open to talk about that, right?
Laura, when I was looking for the meetup, I found it, but I wasn't a member of the meetup, so I couldn't get the link to Zoom. So I had to speak to someone who was inside of the call to come in. So maybe more people wanted to join. They didn't know of that. So,
awesome. Yeah, thanks for that, Amanda. Yeah, we actually created a meetup website where people can just join us, and we're gonna put all the events there. Again, the idea is to do, yeah.
But it's true, like I wasn't logged in, so I couldn't see the link either until I logged in.
Alrighty.
So.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, I think for this one, we decided that we weren't gonna like share the Zoom link ahead of time, but we, you know, just because we're being a bit cautious. But I think we can probably try that for the next time and just share it from our @Samsung Internet Twitter account. Request.
Yeah.
You can email us.
Or DM us on Twitter.
DM us on Twitter, yeah. Yeah, our DMs are open. That's right. On
maybe you should show the
Twitter
account in the chat, like the Samsung Internet thing.
I'll write that in.
Yeah. So yeah, again, around meetup,
I'm assuming that someone's keeping track of all.
Of all the what?
Oh, sorry. Someone's keeping track of all the links that were.
So there's a chat transcript that I'm gonna export.
Awesome.
And also, I will share here some of the Twitter accounts. If you want to continue the conversation, we're also checking different platforms to continue the conversation besides here and Meetup. Some chat platform. We don't want also to, you know, have a bunch of apps or things related. So we're more like testing what's happening and actually how we can interact in a better way. So yeah, any suggestion, please let us know. So yeah, those are some of our Twitter accounts, including Kenny. That's our special guest for today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks a lot for coming. Probably we are going to, of course, this is recording, so we're gonna try to publish these next week, and also we're gonna keep sharing this information around. So thanks around web community that is here. I'm happy to see you all.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna stop the recording.